Welcome to the Meant to Be Outdoors podcast, where our goal is to connect listeners to the great outdoors, with hosts Brian Hoffmeyer and Ben Brandell.
I'm host Ben Brandell, owner of Meant to Be Outdoors, instructor of outdoor skills, and passionate about personal growth.
I'm host Brian Hoffmeyer, wildlife biologist and avid outdoorsman. Welcome back to the Meant to Be Outdoors podcast. I'm your host Brian with my co-host Ben Brandell. It is time for another Myth Monday podcast, and kind of in a sad fashion, it is our final Myth Monday podcast. That is right. This is the last Myth Monday podcast we're going to do, so it's going to be a little different than all the other ones. We have some new directions we're wanting to move in 2023, but there are some topics that we have on our list that we have not covered. So we are going to hit, 13 of them in this one episode.
Yes.
Now, that doesn't mean we're going to go for 13 hours.
We could. We really could.
We're going to keep it short and sweet on each one, but these are several that we wanted to hit, ones that you guys, I'm sure, have heard before, and hopefully at least one of them you will learn something from. But before we get started, Ben, let's give thanks.
You know, the holidays are coming up. I'm, again, thankful for family, thankful for friends, thankful for, my family seems to be growing. A lot of marriages, and so really welcoming in the new family, the new people into the family, I love to see when families grow, and ours is, so it's awesome to meet new people and to learn their traditions, and just bringing more people into relationship.
Yeah, I'm thankful for just all the opportunities that this season brings to spend time with your family. There's just so many things to go do, whether it's look at Christmas lights or go meet the Grinch or go see Santa, or there's just so many activities and things that you can go do with your family. I've really been enjoying spending time with my wife and kids doing these things. And now it's usually not things that I would pick to do for myself, but boy, I sure enjoy doing it with them. So I'm thankful the Christmas season that we've had the last couple weeks and all the cool things that we've got to do together. Well, before we jump into our list and final Myth Monday here, just a few housekeeping tips. If you're not following us on Facebook or Instagram, please do. We like to post videos of podcast episodes we have coming up. We also kind of keep you up to date with what we're doing with our in-person teaching and some of the programs that we're out doing here locally. Also, if you want to support the podcast in 2023, our first episode of 2023 is going to be really putting forth our mission and our direction. And Ben and I think we understand, or maybe not understand, but we're really going to embrace who we are, who we believe we are, who God is telling us that we are. And if you want to get on board with that and support us, we need your help. We really do. We need your help to keep this going. Right now, we're really just kind of going, calling it a leap of faith. But we're putting our family's own money into this and time, and we do spend a lot of time at it. So if you are enjoying this and you like the mission of what Ben and Brian and Meant to Be Outdoors are trying to do to encourage, inspire people to spend time outdoors and connect people to their Creator who made it all, then please help us. And the best way to do that, go to our social media accounts, and you will find a link in the About section of each of those. And you can click on that link. It's a link tree, and it will show you all of our everything Meant to Be Outdoors. And the one that's called Patreon, you can go to that, and you can basically pledge to donate to us monthly, $5, $10, or $25, and that would go to supporting this podcast and helping us get our message out of what we believe, and we would greatly appreciate that support. Anything you would like to add in on the housekeeping side, Ben?
It takes a lot of time to put together what you and I put together. I remember when the idea popped into, I'll say your mind more than mine, but podcast, let's do a podcast, did not realize the time that it takes to really put one together that we feel is put together correctly and gives truth. That's something you and I really pride ourselves in, is we want it to be true. We want what we're sharing to be the truth, to share truth. And that's really kind of how Myth Minutes started, or I keep calling it Myth Minutes and have for a while. Myth Mondays really kind of came about. And I am sad to see it really wrap up today. This was really kind of that thing that was in my mind of like, let's get some truth out there, let's share it. And it's been awesome to see God transform that as well to give us some more ideas and thoughts that we can present for 2023. Yeah. And that, this isn't our very last podcast. This is just the last Myth Monday podcast.
And be sure to listen. A week from this podcast coming out is going to be our first podcast of 2023, and it's really just going to be a rundown of what to expect from Meant to Be Outdoors podcast for 2023, and hopefully some people will be excited about it. There are going to be some things the same, some things a little more focused, but there's going to be some things that are very different as well, and we hope that God blesses it all.
Yeah. Myth Mondays for me was really all about centered around, honestly, this scripture, which is 1 Timothy 6, and it would be verse 20, really through 21. It says, O Timothy, guard the deposit entrusted to you. Avoid the irreverent babble and contradictions of what is falsely called knowledge. For by professing it, some have swerved from the faith. Grace be with you. That's why we've had, for me personally, that's why I've had such a fun time sharing the truth, getting some of those false things that we were saying and have been using in our verbiage to try to get it out, because it's really hard to do. I mean, I'm going to put Brian on the spot. He still calls them possum, and it is hard to say opossum, and we hold each other accountable to that and many other things. But really wrapping it up here, just these are all the ones we've identified as possible myths or just using them incorrectly, the words incorrectly, and can't wait to break them all down for you.
Yeah, as we've gone through some of these and got deep into the Myth Monday, which we've done over 30 of them now, each one was kind of like, well, why are we doing this? And do people care, or why does anybody care, and why do we care? And really the answer was, well, truth matters, and why does it matter? And that's because Scripture says that it does, and all truth is God's truth. And so we kind of have on our hearts to share that. We're going to continue doing that, but in a different way in the coming year. So with all that being said, are you ready to go through 13 Myth Monday myths should we put a time limit on it?
No way. No way. Some will go really quick. Some we'll have to talk about a little.
We'll have to elaborate on a little bit.
Yeah.
Okay. We've kind of broken this down into a few categories here. So we've got a few firearms myths that we're going to hit, that we've been wanting to hit on, and then we've got several animal ones. That's kind of been an overlying theme to our myths. We've had a lot of animal and wildlife ones. We've got several of those. We've got a few survival ones, and then we even have a bonus Christmas myth to end with.
All right, so let's start it off. Let's first break down the firearm side. So that we have two myths inside of the firearms category. The first one is the difference between ammunition and bullet. Take it away, Brian.
Yeah, absolutely. So growing up, you heard ammo or ammunition. Ammo is just short for that, and bullets. But how people use the word bullet is, I need to go get some bullets for my gun.
I gotta go buy some bullets.
I need to buy some bullets. You got any bullets I can have in my gun? We're going hunting. Do I have any bullets? And that's how people use it. However, a bullet is actually just a piece of a round of ammunition. Mm-hmm. And what you are actually putting into your firearm is a round or multiple rounds of ammunition. So let's take a rifle cartridge, for example. So you have your piece of metal or your brass.
So the very end, the part that's going to spark is called your primer.
Yep. You have your primer that goes in the end. You've got your brass, and then you're going to fill it with powder.
Gunpowder.
And then you've got to have a bullet, which is actually the projectile that is going into the end.
Right.
When all of those pieces come together to complete the puzzle, that is ammo or ammunition.
Right. The whole thing, the case on the outside, that whole thing is the round of ammunition.
The whole thing together is ammunition. Now, when you pull the trigger, the primer goes, sparks, hits the powder combusts, and the bullet leaves the casing and out of your rifle. Now you have just a bullet. The projectile that is actually leaving the firearm once you pull the trigger, that is a bullet. But somebody had to put that together with all the other pieces to make a round of ammunition. So it drives me crazy when I hear people at the store saying, oh, I'm here today to get bullets. I got to get bullets for my such and such. And I'm like, well, oh, you reload ammo? Oh, no, that's too much work for me. I'm just here to buy. I'm looking to stock up on bullets. And one bullet by itself's not going to do a whole lot of good for your gun because it's got some missing pieces.
You know, I just thought of this. I guess if you're shooting a BB gun or a pellet gun, that'd be the only time that you'd be buying bullets.
I guess so.
Right?
Yeah.
By our definition, by what we shared. So it just came to me because, man, someone out there might be chomping at the bit.
I guess you could call that a bullet.
All you're doing is loading in the bullet, and the bullet is leaving that firearm. But yeah, I mean, shotgun's the same way. You have your primer, you have your gunpowder. You do have a wad in there, and sometimes, well, that does come out. You can see that.
Paper or plastic, mostly plastic today, yeah.
But your projectiles are still within that casing or that shell, and that's what's really taking down the animal is the bullet within the round of ammunition.
Yeah.
That's
All
good.
right. So what's the second one for firearms?
Second one, this one. You and I hear this one so much.
I've said this one.
You know, I don't even know what I used to say. I was told this. I learned
know.
the truth.
I was confused. The first, I'm going to say 2 decades of my life, like, I just didn't know what either of these really meant. I thought they were just the same thing, different words.
So clip versus mag.
Yeah.
And
mag is short for magazine.
Right. Clip short for clip.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure I've said magazine most of my life, and I don't know why. I wanted to say that I was told the truth a long time ago, and I think that's why I stuck with it. But I've got a lot of family members, friends, a lot of people around us that use the word clip.
Yeah. Well, and military personnel will call you out on this one.
They will. Yeah, we've got some military friends that have called us people around us that we've shot with, and well, they don't call you out. They try to educate. You know, they want to educate, which I truly feel like we're doing today.
It depends how well they know you.
That's true, too.
They'll call you out if they're your friend.
So, majority of the people that are shooting firearms today will not and are not using clips. So, we are all using magazines, especially with modern-day gun. We are using magazines. So, let's break down the difference. Yeah. So, Brian, share.
So a magazine, which you're going to see many times today, people with the way things are in the news are so familiar with, we're going to call them assault rifles, even though that's not what they are. Fun. We're going to make it 14. I'm throwing in a sneaky one on here. So they call them AR-15s, and people think the AR stands for assault rifles. It actually stands
for... rifle.
Air rifle, yeah, air rifle. No, it actually stands for armor light rifle. They're not assault rifles. That is not what the AR means. That's not what that even stands for in AR-15. But anyway, we're so familiar with that platform now because it's so often in the news. But you see the large 30-round magazines that come in and out of those.
That's clip.
Get out of here. 30-round magazines that come in and out of those. So that is actually how you are loading. Now that we know what ammunition is, that's how you're putting ammunition into that gun so that it can be fed into the chamber and fired. But those are removable. You have to load the ammunition into them away from the rifle, and then you put it into the rifle to be used. A clip is much different, and like you said, more like World War II and even before that, and it was more of a way to store and organize your ammunition so that you could quickly load it into the magazine that was already in your rifle, rather than carrying a bunch of magazines like they do today and slapping them in your rifle when you needed a fresh one. They had these clips, which is basically like a metal strip, and you lined your ammo up on them, and then when you needed ammunition into your mag that was in your rifle, you opened usually a bolt-action rifle like a Mauser, and you would push this clip down into the mag, and the clip would load your mag. But with so many semi-automatic rifles today and larger magazine capacities and optics on top of their clips are not really they're obsolete really anymore.
I won't say they're uncommon. They're uncommon. You know, I know people that are listening probably have some, but majority of people listening don't. Right. And you're not going to really go to the store and probably purchase.
I have seen friends and some family members that have ammo clips, but they don't use them for the same purpose before. It's more like if you have loose rounds around your gun safe or in your ammo box, and people will organize them. It's like a place to store these rounds on these clips, but they're not really used the way they were before, as like almost like a quick loader.
So moving forward, you are using a magazine inside your rifle, and that's what they're called, is magazines, not clips.
If a magazine, if it goes into your rifle with your ammo in it, and then you have to take it out and reload it to put it back in, That is a magazine, or mag for short. It is not a clip. It is not a clip of ammunition.
So so you're not taking your bullets and ever putting them in your clip.
Oh God!
Right? Right?
I think, I'm balding, but I think you just made the rest of my hair fall out when you put them together like that. My goodness!
Gotta go buy bullets, put it in my clip.
See how many Myth Mondays can you get wrong in one sentence?
There you go.
You need to go shoot the possum, so you
Yeah.
you go shoot the possum, so you took your bullet in your clip and put it in your assault rifle.
Yeah. Didn't feed him the perch.
And feed them to the perch.
Okay. All right. We're going to move on. All right. We're getting into animals.
Time for animals.
Animal time. The first one. Man, this one I have heard, but I've never believed it. Ever. It's never even been like is that even kind of true?
I'm not going to say it that I'm not going to say I believed it. I'm going to say that there was a long time that I never stopped to really truly think about what was being said, that I just kind of took it. So maybe I did believe it. Mm-hmm. But my goodness, when I first thought about what was actually being said to me, it was just like, there ain't no way. There's no way.
So,
and the myth is,
a lot of people say that a dog's mouth is cleaner than a human's. I mean,
I'm just laughing because my dog threw up yesterday.
On the couch.
And Ben had to leave the room.
Yeah, I was gagging. I thought, yeah, let me go there and kiss that dog's mouth. Yeah. Come on. A dog's mouth is not cleaner than a human's mouth.
No.
And I don't even have to even pull up data to support this.
You don't need the science.
No, I don't need science. Somebody to sit there and tell me how many pieces of bacteria are in my mouth and its mouth. A dog licks its rear end to clean it. Mm-hmm. And I don't. Enough said.
Thanks for that statement.
Enough said. That's it.
I'll provide a little science.
Oh, okay. We'll give somebody some more
a little
truth.
bit of science there is
help
that
'em.
Humans and dogs both have between 600 and 620 different kinds of bacteria in our mouths. Maybe if somebody were going to find some science to bring some truth to the myth that dogs' mouths are cleaner, it may have came from the fact that we have overlapping types of bacteria, humans and dogs, but we also have a bunch that's different too. So they have things in their mouth that we don't have in our mouth. So maybe because they have different bacteria, they're going to say that they're lacking some of the stuff that we have, but really when you're looking at numbers, it's about the same. And again, I mean...
Have you seen what your dog eats when it's outside?
I've got a dog that eats chicken turds.
Yeah.
The fattest Papillon I've ever seen in my life ate so many turkey turds out of the yard that she was about to explode. Like, I think if you'd have poked her with a needle, she'd have popped.
Now, I know there's people that brush their dog's teeth. I don't.
Well, my dogs don't brush their teeth every day.
Yeah. No.
Haven't been able to get them to do that yet.
Not yet.
I do. That's going to be my exclamation.
Oh, okay. You brush your teeth?
I brush my teeth every
good,
day.
Good.
So... we'll just leave it at that. A dog's mouth is not more clean than a human's mouth.
You know, if you want them to lick all of your face, that's fine. You do that with your dog. Don't try to give the rest of us some fake excuse.
Yeah.
To do that. Just you do it. If you love your dog that much, okay. Hopefully you take a shower later that night. Be good to go.
Yeah. And some people will say that people will let dogs lick their wounds.
Ooh.
Because they have these healing properties in their saliva.
For themselves.
That's also true for us. And I'm not going to lick any wound that I have. Our saliva also has healing properties in it too. So while that is true, I don't really think it's a great idea because they have over 600 kinds of bacteria in their mouth. I wouldn't let them lick your wounds.
Yeah, I mean, I guess we'll get into science again. If any animal bites you of any kind, you should go to the doctor because of the bacteria in their mouths that can get into your blood, that can make you sick.
Yeah.
So,
well, which animals can bite you?
Anything that has a mouth. My son always asks me all the time. Yeah. Actually, he hasn't in the last year or so. But back when he's like 3, he'd be like,
bite you?
"Can that bite you?" And I said, "Bodie, if it has a mouth, it can bite."
Yeah. What they're really asking is it gonna bite me?
Or is it gonna bite me? Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Probably not, but it does have a mouth, so it can. Well, that's gonna be it for our first myth on the animal side. What's our second animal myth?
Get into your favorite, which is deer.
Yeah.
And I've heard this in regards to, it's usually going to be in the spring. It's when does start having fawns and they're haying, and you have these little tiny deer, tiny.
Yeah.
And people are terrified to touch them, saying that if you touch these baby deer,
Yeah.
we'll call it a fawn, if you touch this fawn, that the mama's going to want nothing to do with it, and it's going to die.
It's abandoned, and you killed it because
killed
you touched it. Shame on you.
You're a terrible human.
Yes. So fawns, when they're born, white-tailed deer, fawns, only weigh 4 to 6 pounds. I don't think a lot of people realize how tiny they are. 4 to 6 pounds. They're very, very small.
So that's lighter than a jug of milk?
Well, yeah. A gallon of milk is 8 pounds.
Right.
Yeah, so lighter than a jug of milk. And for the first 2 weeks of their life, their mom is hiding them and coming back to them, and hiding them and coming back to them. And they are not going to jump up and run away from you during that time period if you walk up to them. You can walk up to them and pick them up and pet them. Now, you should not do that. So by me, I don't want people to get this confused. Me saying that touching a fawn is not going to kill them is not permission to go touch fawns. It is okay to touch a fawn if they are in danger. So maybe the mom hit them up somewhere and it was actually the place you let your pit bulls out during the day. Well, you need to move the fawn out of there before you let your pit bulls out. That's kind of an extreme example, but all that to say, if they are in danger, move them to a shady spot and try not to move them very far, because mama has stashed them and she's going to come back to them. If you stash that fawn and it does jump up and run away from you, we'll let it. It's going to go find its own spot and mama's going to come back to it. But don't think that she's deserted it, because during those first couple weeks, she is stashing it, she's going out and feeding and doing her thing, and she is coming back to it. Is she going to smell that you've picked it up and touched it? Yes. But she has just carried that thing for over 200 days and given birth to it. She is not going to abandon it just because it has a little human scent on it.
Yeah, I mean, if a coyote, let's say, came up, grabbed a hold of it,
Yeah.
and for some reason let it go and didn't kill it,
Right.
mama's going to smell that coyote on it, but still raise it, take care of it, and
Correct.
give it what it needs.
So if you need to help save a fawn, if it's in a road, whatever, if you need to touch it, to pick it up, to move it, go ahead and do that, because you are helping it. The fawn is not going to get abandoned. But also on the other side of that, so many people think that they are abandoned. They bring them in to take them and raise them.
Home. You don't need to take them in.
Take fawns home. There's no reason for that.
Right.
And you can get in trouble for it because it's against the law as well. So
no, that is the best point to make.
Yeah.
It is against the law.
It is against the law.
Don't do it.
It is against the law, and it's against the law for good reason. But if you need to touch them to save them, then go ahead and touch them and save them. All right.
So maybe at this point, a lot of people are starting to see red and get mad.
Yeah.
Okay?
Maybe so.
Maybe they are. I don't know. But here's another one.
Yeah, this one, a lot of movies. I've definitely seen this in movies and on TV. Even had people tell me this as I've worked with bison, and I actually used to get asked this all the time when I took care of a bison herd, was, are they the same as bulls? Can you wear red around them or can you not? And at first I was kind of like, what? Because I always took, when I heard the myth is that the color red makes bulls mad. When I heard that, I took that one as, not going to say a myth, but I took it as almost a joke or a movie thing, like not real. But people really believe that the color red makes bulls mad. So people would ask, do the bison get mad with the color red like cattle, like bulls do? Took me off guard a little bit. I was like, well, no, they don't. But if you jump out there and entice it and swing and dance in front of it, he's going to get irritated. He's going to come at you. And so when you look at the Spanish matadors swinging their red, I don't even know what they have a special name for their red blanket that they're swinging around. It's not that it's the color red, and science can prove that. It's actually that they're out there shaking and dancing and making this thing mad. And the reason we know the science side is that bulls are actually partially colorblind compared to humans, and the part of the color spectrum they're most colorblind to is the color red. So it's pretty easy to prove that bulls don't care about the color red.
Well, that's a good one, because I have heard that one all my life. And you see it in movies
books.
and children's books, and they can keep flapping the red flags around, or capes, whatever they are. They can move them around, but you're saying it really is the action.
Right.
And looking at bullfighting today, not getting on a crazy tangent, but like bullfighting today, these bulls are trained to attack, like to come at them, and
They're bred for it.
they are bred for it.
Right.
So, it isn't color anymore. It is going to be that movement, and so that's a myth.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is a myth. The next one has to do with snakes. So I know there's some people that listen to this podcast that I know personally. My little sister, to be named out, as one that don't even like to hear snake talk. So maybe you need to fast forward a few minutes if you don't like snake talk, because we're going to talk about snakes here, and in particular water moccasins, which is one of the snakes here locally that people fear the most. Why is that?
So a water moccasin is a nickname for a cottonmouth. Cottonmouth is the official name, and it is a snake that loves the water. It's found by the water. That's majority where we're going to find that snake. And that snake, some people have shared that they are very, very aggressive, so much as that they would chase after you. Now,
Right.
I've not heard of anybody that was chased and then was trampled by the snake, like it locked its legs up and tied it up, knocked it over, and bit it. Like, what are they going to do if they're chasing after you? What would be the end goal? What's their goal of that?
Right. They're not viewing you as prey.
Right.
Because you're much, much larger than them. Do you know the number one place for people to get bit by snakes?
You
on
mean
the body?
on
number
the
one
body?
place on your body.
You know what? I'm going to say hand.
You're exactly right. And why do you think that is?
Because people are picking,
Because
touching,
people are
moving.
messing with snakes. So it's not the only place that people get bit. There's all kinds of
I'd say
stories and
second's probably your
instances.
foot and your leg down there.
But your hands are number one. So why would your hand ever be there is the question. And of course, there's all kinds of stories when people do get bit of what happened. But what I want to say is that cottonmouths are not going to chase you. That is a myth. The word aggressive comes in. They're really not aggressive. They're actually a reclusive species, and they want to be away from people. They have a defense mechanism called the gap mouth function. And so what they do when they are threatened and they don't feel like they can get away, they do what's called gap mouth function, and they actually coil up, and their head is in the middle of their body. And they coil up and they kind of lift up their head and they open that mouth really wide, basically showing like, I'm mean, I'm bad to the bone, and I'll get you.
Cottonmouth.
And that's where they get their name, cottonmouth, because when they do that, you see all this very, it's not white, it's actually a really pale pink tissue inside their mouth, and they'll show their fangs. They don't want to bite you. They do not want to, because it puts them at risk, and the reason they coil up and put their head in the middle is they can actually tuck their head down inside that coil of their body they just to protect their head. And so this gap mouth function makes people think that they're aggressive, but what that snake is really saying is, hey, whoa, back up. And if you do, if you even turn your back on it and walk away, it's not going to chase after you and bite you. It's not going to.
Right.
That is a myth that these water moccasins will chase you. Now, Ben, you've mentioned before that you've been out on the water in your boat, and that a water moccasin has come up and tried to get in your boat.
I've had both that and water snakes.
Water snakes.
Both. One's venomous, one's not.
Right.
What I want to share at this point is that we've talked about this before. There are snakes, well, all animals, but there are some snakes within, let's just say a black rat snake. Mm-hmm. You and I have come in contact with black snakes that literally let us, in the wild, touch them. Didn't act like they even cared. We went up to other black snakes, couldn't even get close enough to touch.
Right.
They're raising body, they're fake striking. They're trying to say, get out of here.
Personalities is a great word.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk about the behavior side.
Right.
But my point is that maybe though that one cottonmouth that was coming after the boat could have been around a nest. It could have been in an area where it could have been wanting to get in my boat because it wanted to rest and relax for a minute. Who knows?
It could have thought you were a big log or log mat and wanted a place to hide.
Correct. Right. I don't know the reason for why it was doing what it was doing. But the myth is a lot of people think that these snakes are just chasing after people. Like we go outside and everyone's running because here's a snake coming after me. That just isn't happening.
Yeah. I want to qualify everything we're sharing about cottonmouths or water moccasins here real fast. In college, I was part of a research project. We had to go out to a really well-known cottonmouth breeding area. It was a creek here in southwest Missouri that was known for their breeding, and we were actually capturing and radio tagging. And then basically we were studying, it was a breeding study, studying how far They traveled from the creek, the males and females, and at one point, which I'm not going to date myself, this was a while ago, it was just under 1,000. It was over between 900 and 1,000 different cottonmouths that we had radio tagged. And so when we go out to collect them, we had to find them. They weren't coming after us. We were in their area. We were in one of the most densely populated cottonmouth areas in the entire state, and probably for several states, and that we couldn't hardly find them. Sometimes we would actually have to use their radio signals to find some of the ones that we'd already radio tagged. But when we were trying to find new ones to radio tag, we're flipping rocks. I mean, we're on land searching these snaky areas, wood piles and rocks along this river. And when we would find one, say I flipped a big rock over and there was a cottonmouth there, most of the time it tried to hide back under the rock that I just flipped, or it went the other way. Never once did it ever come after me or anybody that was with me. Never.
Right. And for those people that are listening that have said, you know what, I have had a snake chasing after me, you may have. And what we mean by that is that snake is moving from point A to point B.
And you were between those 2 points.
And you're between the point, right? It's not tracking you down like if you were to spin away from a bull, like you would from a bull, and trying to get away from that bull pinning you down. If you were to spin and get around, that snake ain't going to whip around and keep coming at you.
Right.
And that's what we're trying to share here. And the reason we want to share that so much is that it terrifies people. They think that these snakes are just going to come out of nowhere and chase after them. Mm-hmm. It's just not right. It's not the truth.
Yeah, it is. So hopefully that gives some understanding and maybe a little peace to some people on the cottonmouth and water moccasins. And really the moral of the story is don't mess with them and they won't mess with you. That's the best way to sum it up. And that can really be said for any wildlife that you don't want to have a problem with. Don't mess with it, and it's not going to mess with you. I'm sure there's some exceptions there, but general rule of thumb, that's a good one to remember. Our next myth has to do, and I loved this when I was a kid, has to do with touching toads. So some of you, as soon as you hear that, you're probably immediately thinking, oh, because you get warts, right? And that is a myth. You're not going to get warts if you touch a toad. On the science side, they actually don't even carry the virus, and it is a virus that gives us warts. They don't even carry the virus to give us warts, and their skin is bumpy, but it is not bumpy. It is not warts on their skin.
It looks warty, but it's not, right?
Right.
We get warts as humans. We actually get them. We can get that virus from other people by touching things that other people have touched. Mm-hmm. So I'll go out on a limb and say, in theory, if you had warts and you happened to touch that toad, and I had somehow touched the same spot at the same time,
yeah,
I could get warts because of you.
From the toad from you. Yeah. Well,
but the reality is that you going out and touching toads, they do not give us warts, right?
Right.
What is interesting, though, is have you ever seen a dog try to bite one?
Yeah, it's crazy. So all toads are actually toxic.
Ooh.
And so when they're threatened, if you just go pick one up, they may pee on you. But if you're not smashing or if you're being gentle with them, they're probably not going to go into emitting this toxin. Again, animals work hard to produce this stuff. So if it doesn't have to emit it, it doesn't want to have to go through the energy and the work of producing it again. But if you start seeing any kind of milky substance or emission from a toad, they're emitting a toxin, and it is actually strong enough that small animals, it can kill them. And it will make your dog nauseous. It'll make your dog foam at the mouth. A bigger sized dog is going to spit it out. It's going to be really bitter and nasty tasting, and your dog is probably going to have an upset stomach afterwards doing that. But yes, I have seen dogs spit out toads and just be foaming at the mouth like they're rabid.
Well, I thought my dog would learn after the first time, but she's done it multiple times, so I guess she enjoys it. I don't know.
Sometimes it's just hard to resist temptation. More on that later. What about bees, Ben?
You know, that was actually not too long ago. Someone asked us about what happens to the hind end of a bee once it stings you, and we've talked to some people about this, but I think the current myth is that all bees die after stinging. Mm-hmm. Right? That is a myth.
It is.
So, but there is a type of bee that's impacted severely once it stings. So share with us what that bee.
There's several different species and kinds of bees. But for instance, if a bumblebee comes and stings you, that's going to hurt you pretty bad.
Right.
But that bee's not going to die. That's not going to die. It's only honeybees that when they sting you, they're actually ripping that out of them, and it causes trauma to their tiny little bodies, and it a lot of times is fatal for those honeybees. Now, it is a myth, and it's kind of a sad myth, because of all the bee species, the most important seems to be honeybees. That's the one we're most concerned with. That's the one we're having the biggest problems with losing our populations of. But also, when I was a kid and I got stung, I had this little piece of solace in my heart. Ha, you stung me, now you're dead.
Right. Yeah. You hurt
but it
me,
wasn't
I hurt
even
you.
true. It wasn't even true, because the thing I've been stung by the least is a honeybee, because they're really not that aggressive. Again, unless you grab that sucker and smash it, it's not going to sting you. A good story of that, if you listen to previous couple of podcasts about my trip to Jamaica, they had these soda fountain machines outside on the beach, and every single spout where each type of Coke was coming out was covered in honeybees. Covered. Wow. And you literally had to beat the side of the whatever flavor of Coke you wanted, and they'd fly off, and you had to stick your cup in there real quick, fill it up, and then before you could even get it out, they'd be back on there. One time, I was too slow, and the Coke actually came out and put like 6 or 7 honeybees into my Coke. But never one time in an entire week of people using that and myself using it multiple times a day, I never saw anybody get stung, and there were thousands on each Coke machine.
So is Jamaica where straws were made? Because if you're filling up your drink, how many bees are you getting in your drink?
They had those dadgum paper straws there. And I mean, you talk about a worthless.
I hate paper straws.
I mean, I'm all about not using plastic, but just don't use a straw.
But if they keep from bees getting in your mouth, then
I guess so. But yeah, I actually used a spoon, and I spooned them all out because I didn't want to waste my Coke.
Good job, you didn't pour it out and start over.
No, I spooned them all out, and I kept my drink.
I was stung by a yellow jacket, and right on my right hand, the meaty part there in between my index finger and thumb. Mm-hmm. And as I felt it, I looked down, and I flicked it. And when I did, it left behind the stinger, and I'm going to say its hind end. It was like a round, and the whole thing was pulsating. Like, you could see it pulsating. So then I flipped it again, which I knew he was dead because it ripped off his body. But, you may have those one-offs where you're flipping it off, or you hit it, or you swat it, any kind of bee, whatever that insect is. But bees do not die after they sting, except for the honeybee.
Except for the honeybees.
I've been hit by a wasp 2 or 3 times, one wasp. Same way, they don't die right after they sting, and they can sting multiple times as well. So be careful around those, especially if you are allergic to any of them. Be very, very careful.
Absolutely.
Take heart. All right.
Ready for the last animal one?
Last animal. Now, this one's crazy. So I'm going to ask Brian this question. Who is tougher, a cougar, a mountain lion, or a puma? You have all 3, and they're facing each other. Which one's going to win?
Who would be who in a fight, right?
Who's going to win in a fight?
That's like if Mike Tyson fought Mike Tyson, and Mike Tyson was there fighting him.
Right.
Who would win?
Which Mike Tyson's going to win, Brian?
And the reason we're being silly about that is that a cougar, a puma, a panther, a mountain lion are all different names for the same cat.
Kitty cat.
They're all for the same cat, the largest cat in North America. But so many people will think that they are different. And I hear Black Panther a lot of times. I don't know if it's because of the movie, but even before the movie came out, it was when people refer to a black one, which just means they're melanistic. There really are black ones, but means they produce more melanin, so more dark color in their fur, that it was a totally different species, and it wasn't. It's just referring to the same cat. They actually have more names, and there's some less common ones that people don't hear, and one of them is painter, and the other is catamount. And I've heard the word catamount before, but I didn't know that it referred to those cats. So if you hear mountain lion, panther, painter, puma, catamount, they're all referring to the same cat.
That's good. That's good. That's a short and sweet one there. But call them whatever you want, but know they're the same thing.
Yeah.
All right, now we're going to jump into a little bit of survival real quick. Now, these are pretty quick. 2 that we hear a lot. 1 is, man, if you get lost, look for
Yeah, you're looking
Moss.
for moss. You're looking for moss on the north side of a tree.
So that's what's being told.
That's what's
today.
being told is find the moss, and you know that's the north side of the tree. And so if you need to go north, then follow the same direction the moss is. But now you know south, east, and west. But dadgummit, that is going to get you lost.
So my biology buddy here,
Yes.
is it even moss? Or is it lichen?
A lot of times
What
on
are
trees, a lot of times on trees, I've seen a lot of people call it moss, but it's actually lichen,
Right.
which is a symbiotic relationship between algae and moss, and that's that kind of green. Doesn't quite look like a mushroom, but it's more of a flaky, and you'll see it all over the side of trees, and that's not actually moss. That is a lichen.
So I think that's what they're actually trying to say that they're looking for on the north side. They're looking for that thing. But you and I have seen trees with moss completely all the way around the tree.
Oh yeah, all, from top to bottom, every side of it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I will say this, that once you know where true north is at, north that you're wanting to go, start looking at trees and see what's on that side of the tree. Mm-hmm. But that doesn't work all the time, and you have to be so careful. So I would add that to other things.
Right.
Right? So if I see that in the morning the sun is rising, I know the sun rises in the east, so I can match that with possibly looking at what's happening on this tree here. What's this tree doing? Where is it growing? What direction is it facing towards? We could also look at if there's snow on the ground, which slope's melting first. I mean, there's so many clues that are out there to help you know north, south, east, west. Don't take this one and say that it's definite and follow it saying that it's north, because it's false. It isn't always going to be that way.
If you take a minute to go spend some time, if you're fortunate enough to go spend some time in the forest, look around at where the moss is growing, and you're going to find that you will see it in every cardinal direction. You'll see it growing on eastern facing sides of trees and slopes, and as well as the west and the south and the north. And so if that is something you're going to completely rest on, then you may end up lost, and being lost in a survival situation can lead to you not surviving. And that's definitely not what we want anybody to do. So,
Even worse.
all right.
So if you are lost and it's cold
If you're lost and you're thirsty.
and you're thirsty, there you go. And you're thirsty. Another myth that we hear about is drinking your urine.
I want you to address this one, because even survivalists on TV shows,
They go back and forth, man.
they love this one. They go back and forth.
They do.
And we get asked about it all the time. I mean, we'll be on a one-night, overnight backpacking trip, and we've got enough water for 4 days, and people will ask, hey, if we need to drink our pee, can we?
And I say, well, I mean, you can.
You can.
You can. I ain't stopping you. So there actually is a debate in this. Don't remember which survival show it was, but there's two survivalists that go out together, and the one guy literally said, I'm so thirsty, I'm going to stop and drink my pee. And the other guy said, you know what? You're nuts. I'm never going to. Don't need to. And I mean, they go back and forth. And so what is truth in that? You know, just because you can drink your urine, I feel you shouldn't drink your urine.
Right.
When you get into breaking down the human body, why are you urinating? So we look at that first. What is urine? And mostly water, but urine that you are releasing, your body doesn't need anymore.
It, by definition, is
waste. So if that's the truth, then you shouldn't be drinking your urine.
Correct.
So then let's look at it from a different perspective.
Go to the trash can and eat the trash.
Yeah. There's
waste. You're done with it. It's not the good stuff.
You know, you may be able to pick a few things out of the trash can to eat, and it's the same way with your urine. So there are ways that you can use your urine for water, but you're not going to drink your water. You're not going to drink your urine to rehydrate you.
Right.
Now, before we break that down, one other piece of that is there are some that have been through survival situations that have drank their pee that said it was more psychological because their mouths were so dry that just a little moisture in their mouth made them feel like it was worth moving forward and advancing, right? But for the human body, they're not getting anything from that. So then, how do we use it? There's many ways. You can use, if you got a water bottle, you can pee in that, and then it warms up because your urine is the same temperature as your body. So you can use that to melt snow, and then you could drink that water. You could also create a solar still, where you actually, that's a really fun process. Look it up, check it out. It's called a solar still.
Well, what's great about a solar still is the water that is left in your urine. So as you pee into a solar still, and we can't go into the whole process of how to build one on this podcast episode, but if you pee in a solar still, the way it still works, it's actually removing just the water, and then you're collecting just the water. So all the waste, all the stuff you don't want to go back into your body will still be there. You won't be taking that back in. Now, the downside of that is when you do that, you find out how little water really was left in your urine, because it takes so much pee to make any usable, drinkable amount of water in a solar still.
Yeah, and this is a really hard one to teach also over the podcast, and I don't even know the name of it, but you can take a water bottle, cut the bottom off, and fold the bottom of it inside itself, and you could pee in a helmet, in a bowl, in some sort of larger object, and you could actually set that bottle down on top, and as it evaporates, as the sun's beating down on that and you leave it there, it can evaporate, and it's the same concept as that solar still.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you're not getting enough water, period,
To make it worth it.
to make it even worth it. So if you are setting up multiple stills, great solar stills, then great. But drinking your urine you can't drink your urine and then pee that again and drink it again and keep going through this process thinking that you're doing something, because you're not. You have to rehydrate. You have to get new water into your system. And so if you love survival, then dig into, where can I find water? What water can I drink? And how do I make it drinkable if I find it and it's not drinkable? Start going down those avenues versus, if I have to, I'll just drink my urine.
Right. And it's an easy way out, but it's not really doing much for you. And some people are probably thinking, thank goodness I didn't want to believe that, because I never wanted to think about drinking my pee anyway. So some people are probably thanking us for that news. But let's move on to our next myth. And we are actually going to turn to the Bible for this one. I have heard this. It has been said to me, told to me. I have told this to people, and that kind of breaks my heart because of how untrue it really is. And it's damaging, and it opposes the gospel, and that's why I want to share it. There's a lot of these, but this is just one that we hear all the time in our culture in the United States. Christians say it to Christians, and it is not true, and it is a damaging thing to say, and that is, God will not give you more than you can handle. Mm-hmm. You hear it. Somebody's going through a tough time. Hey, you know what? It's almost like this building up, like, you got this, you can do this, and the sentiment is good. The sentiment is good, but the message is wrong, and it's gospel opposing. We're going to explain that. God will not give you more than you can handle. That is not true.
It isn't true. I think the scripture people turn to,
the one that is referenced, where this is drawn from, is 1 Corinthians 10:13.
Yeah, and I want to read that.
Yes.
I want to read exactly what that says. So 1 Corinthians 10:13 says, "No temptation has overtaken you that is not common to man. God is faithful, and he will not let you be tempted beyond your ability. But with the temptation, he will also provide the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it."
Yep. First thing I want to point out, when people use this, they're talking about trials and tribulations.
Not
people
temptation.
are going through tough things. This is talking about temptation.
Right.
Temptation and trials and tribulations they're not the same thing. Temptation is the thing, sin. You're being, by your flesh or by Satan, you are being tempted to sin. And so that is different than trials and tribulations will come if you give in to that. However, they're two very different things. So it's not really a great parallel. Secondly, I want to point out the very end. But with the temptation, also make the way of escape, that you may be able to endure it. The way of escape is Jesus Christ. So what this passage is saying is that the gospel is important.
Mm-hmm.
The gospel that Jesus Christ came because we are all sinners. We're all walking dead, and somebody had to pay for that debt, the debt of our sin, and we need him, and we have to have him. Without him, we're all bound and destined for hell, all of us.
Right.
And so what this is saying is, he came, he provided a way out. Submit to him, repent, and follow him. He's got your escape. He is your escape plan right here. But if we believe that God will not give you anything that you can't handle, then that's saying that we are our escape plan. We're our own strength, and that's not the gospel. The gospel is that we aren't strong enough, that we have to have Jesus Christ.
Yeah, let me read it this way. So, God won't give you more than you can handle, right? So God does not promise us that we'll face things that we can handle on our own, which is exactly what Brian is talking about. Because if we were able to handle everything in life on our own, then why in the world would we need God?
Right.
Why would we? Often, people say this during like you said, trials, tribulations, tough times. I'm just going to say tough times. But I want to talk about Isaiah 41:10 really fast.
Isaiah 41:10.
You did. Good job. You said that fast, too.
Yeah.
That's good. Fear not, for I am with you. Be not dismayed, for I am your God. I will strengthen you. I will help you. I will uphold you with my righteous right hand. It is him that is helping you through.
Correct.
Period.
Yeah, he's not giving you the strength. He is the strength to get through whatever you're going through. And to even drive this point home, one last thing I'd like to say on a little more is almost everybody, and if you haven't yet, bad news is you're going to, has been in a time in your life where you had the thought, I don't know if I can get through this. I don't know how I'm going to get through this. I don't know if I can. And so when you feel that way, you really can't. He's got to be there to walk with you, and whether you're acknowledging that he is or that he isn't, that's up to you, and that's something that you and him need to address together. But we've all felt that way. We all have those low points of life. He doesn't promise comfort and ease. He actually promises just the opposite of that. But he also promises eternal life with him, and that's the hope. I hate to use the word hope because the biblical use of hope is a promise and a truth, and we use it in our culture as a wish, but hope isn't a wish in the Bible. So his promise is that we get to spend eternal life with him.
And that is not a myth.
It's not a myth. That is not a myth on Myth Monday. But all right. You ready for the Christmas bonus myth?
Yeah, I do. I am going to say a disclaimer really fast, though.
Yes, say a disclaimer.
So, for those listening, if you have children with you around you that enjoy Christmas, as we all do,
right,
and really enjoys learning a lot about Santa Claus and his reindeer, it's time to turn on a Christmas song.
Yeah, my preschool age kids aren't going to hear this part.
Right. So now's the time to kick it off. And before you do, thanks for tuning in and listening to this podcast. We'd love to have you join on the next one. So our last myth, this is the Christmas edition.
If you're sticking around.
If you're sticking around.
It is the day after Christmas right now.
Is it? Okay,
yeah.
So today's the day after Christmas. We have a myth for you about reindeer, and I want Brian to lay this out so clear for us. What do we got going on here?
So here's the myth. Vixen, Donner, Blitzen, Rudolph,
Cupid.
I don't even know all the names.
Couldn't think of them either.
I'd go on to say that those are all boy names, right?
Well, when we look at the names, not even that. Let's just say, let's look at the movie. So Rudolph, the Red-Nosed Reindeer movie that plays, that we watch, where he's playing the reindeer games. His dad covers his nose with something black, and the kids can't see his nose. Mm-hmm. Well, the coach comes out, and he's talking about all of them. They are all boys, right? And then Rudolph sees, I think it's Clarice, I think is her name, and she is a doe. Well,
she's a girl.
She's a girl. I don't know what they call her on there. And so we can gather then that Rudolph and all the buddies are all boys.
They're all males, correct. Right. So either Santa, maybe Santa, it was dark and he couldn't tell, or maybe it's the fact that reindeer are actually caribou and they're the only one of the 40 deer species that both the males and females have antlers. They're the only one, so both males and females have antlers. So maybe it was summer and he just saw them all out there with their antlers and he gave them all boy names, not knowing that they were all girls.
You mean all his reindeer?
All his reindeer are girls, and I'm going to use science to prove it. You ready for this?
Give it.
So, in mid-December, all male reindeer or caribou shed their antlers. So by the time Christmas rolls around, the only reindeer that still have antlers are the females. So if you look at all of Santa's reindeer, if you've seen them, I've seen them around, they're all antlered. They're all antlered. So that shows that they must be female. So he must have got confused somewhere in there.
He did. It happened.
And gave them boy names.
But see, that's how Myth Mondays ever came about,
Right.
because so many people have said the wrong things for so long, they just keep saying it.
Right. So what's the difference between a reindeer and a caribou?
Nothing.
Well, nothing. It actually,
in North
America,
right? Yeah.
Caribou refers to wild caribou, and reindeer refers to domesticated. So that's why his are reindeer, because he's domesticated them.
Reindeer are domesticated caribou.
Domesticated caribou.
Right.
And then in Europe, caribou are almost always referred to as reindeer.
That's good.
Yep.
That's
So
good.
that is your Santa Claus Christmas bonus myth for you.
Boom.
Boom. Throwing that one out there here the day after Christmas. You know, we covered a lot of myths in this one, and we've kept it under an hour, which is kind of unbelievable. This is going to be it for our very last Myth Monday podcast, so we can kiss it goodbye with either happy tears or sad tears. We hope that you guys all had a very, very Merry Christmas and that everybody was safe and healthy, that rest was had, and that people really were able to understand how joyous it was that Christ came to this earth fully man. When I sit and think about that, it blows my mind, because he experienced the same things I experienced. Splinters and runny noses. Well, I don't know. Did Jesus get sick? I don't think Jesus got sick.
Nose runs. That's healthy.
Nose runs when it's cold. Yeah, it's part of our body. He experienced those things. He experienced the temptations that I feel. Yet he is God that is just completely omnipotent and sovereign, and to have the authority and the characteristics of God, but to still come and be fully man and human, and to feel and experience the things that I feel and experience. I wouldn't want anything else from the leader of my life. I wouldn't want that. So I hope that people were able to rest and feel some of that in this Christmas season.
Yeah, and I hope that they continue to put him first for 2023.
Yeah.
So start now.
It is tough to put him first, because we have to die to ourselves. There's sacrifice in that, and it's not always easy, because there are things that feel good and are fun that he does not approve of, that we have to put behind ourselves to truly honor and follow him and put him first.
But it's through his strength anyway.
Correct. As we learned earlier.
So state it and start trying to do it, and he'll do it for you.
Right. You have to try. There's effort required on your part. But I hope that over the last 7 months, you guys have enjoyed our Myth Mondays. I hope that you've learned. I hope that you've shared it with others. I know some hit home and some didn't, but we sure had fun sharing them and researching and learning along with you guys. We hope that 2023 is a very blessed season for you. We hope that you're going to follow our podcast in 2023. We hope that you find more time outdoors in 2023, and if there's any way that we can help you do that, please reach out to us. We hope that you are automatically downloading and subscribing to our podcast on whatever platform you listen. It really does help us if you leave us ratings and reviews on iTunes. It helps us move up those charts so other people can find it. So please just leave whatever rating. There's if you scroll down to the bottom of the podcast page on iTunes, you can see the stars. Pick whatever star you think will worth, 5 being the best, 1 being the worst. We've got some kind words or some words of maybe constructive criticism to leave there for us, please do. We would love the guidance. That is going to be it for the final Myth Monday podcast episode. We will be back on Thursday with another episode of the Meant to Be Outdoors podcast. But as always, between now and then, please find time to get outdoors. Thank you for listening to the Meant to Be Outdoors podcast, hosted by Brian Hoffmeyer and Ben Brandell. Please help us by subscribing, Also, follow along on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook.